The frequencies feel stronger, more intense, faster pulsating. The opportunities for embodiment feel greater. The awakening is moving out of monasteries and mountaintops and mountain caves, and it is entering businesses, families, relationships, communities, leadership, technology, innovation. The light is becoming practical. The mystical is becoming embodied. And this may be the hallmark. Actually, this is the hallmark of the HomoLuminous timeline. The integration of spirit and matter. The integration of heaven and earth. Beloved heart, before we begin, I have a special gift for you. If you've been feeling the intensity of Earth's rising plasma light codes and want to stay centered in your body and heart and energy field, I've created a free light language quantum grounding activation just for you. This transmission will help you stabilize, integrate, and align with the new frequencies flowing onto the planet. Simply join my mailing list. See the link that's in the show notes to receive instant access. Let's ground into the light together. This is the transfiguration of the new you. Hello, my star brothers and star sisters. Welcome back to another episode of my podcast. I really feel like we just went through this tunnel of portal for this solstice for June of 2026 because it really feels different now. Are you feeling the difference? And I'll get into some of that in this episode. This episode is really focused on the Galactic Homo-Luminous Timeline unfoldment that I'm really sensing from this. And it has to do with this solstice portal that we just went through as well. I'm finding that really like this whole weekend, I kept thinking about HomoLuminous, HomoLuminous. It just kept coming up, that subject, that title, that word kept resonating often, significantly. So I really was sensing that there's an expansive message that wants to come through in regards to this. And it wasn't like 2 years ago that I actually have an episode that is related to HomoLuminous, where I talk about from Homo sapien to HomoLuminous. So if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. I get into a lot more details as far as like that evolution from the Homo sapien to the HomoLuminous. And this episode is going to be an expansive message in regards to that. So, this is something that I have felt emerging beneath the surface of our reality, something I can sense but cannot always explain with words. Today, I want to get into this whole galactic homo-luminous timeline, not as a theory, not as a prophecy either, but just really more like this unfolding remembrance that we're having. Because if you're listening to this episode, chances are you felt it too. You're feeling something different within yourself. Something is shifting, something has changed or shifted within yourself. Something feels profoundly different. And perhaps the strangest part is that it's difficult to pinpoint exactly when it happened. So, just to go back and recap, right, the beginning of 2026, we had some major, like rare celestial events occur as far as like transits are concerned. And these are so rare, right, that they um happened. Like one of them was like many millenniums ago that it wasn't really historically recorded, but it really changed the whole when it happened. I think it was when it changed from the Stone Age or something like that in civilization. So it was like a major reset to civilization. And it just, and what makes it so rare is that, for January of 2026, it just felt like it was in the 0 degrees, very specific 0 degrees of Aries, and that's the part that made it rare. So when I think about the first half, of the year of 2026, it feels like it's eons ago. I don't know if anybody else is feeling that, but it just feels like it's been like a whole other lifetime. And I'm talking about like from January until like June before, this whole solstice. That's what I mean. Like the solstice portal was huge and very big in a way that we all received, a lot of different light codes. So I hope you spent your time well out in nature, connecting with Earth, because that's the perfect spot to have these upgrades. If not, it's not too late to go out and just request to soak in, these new codes. And it's a very simple request to just make to yourself and just be with it for the moment, be hanging out with nature. And, I've noticed though that a lot more people as well after this June solstice have, been feeling like they're not the same anymore, or they just don't relate to their old life. Time just feels strange, and feel both lost and more connected than ever. So if that resonates with you, of course, this episode's for you. But because, I believe we're witnessing the beginning stages of a timeline reset, which is what it feels like, a timeline reset, unlike anything we've experienced in our current civilization cycle. Um, Meaning that we're going through with all these frequencies changes and stuff, feels like this whole new dimensional space. Feels not that, it's ungrounded in any way, because I've been grounding so much. This is just, it feels very much that we are shifting into this whole other timeline that feels different to me. Um, so it's really like the beginning of a whole evolutionary humanity, the HomoLuminous humanity, that we're stepping into more this unfoldment. This is the luminous human, the radiant human, the remembered human, the reconnected human, um, the one that remembers, the original roots of our human blueprint. And it is a galactic human. As you've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's been a lot more significant movies and shows out there about extraterrestrials. And the biggest one is, of course, Disclosure Day that just came out in June of 2026. The timing of it, I don't think it's coincidence. It all has is orchestrated synchronicity with the current energies that we find ourselves in at this time as well, which is very fitting for all of this. So let's begin by revisiting the celestial events that opened in 2026, as I was talking about it briefly in the beginning. Many astrologers, have described these alignments are, as historic, and rare as well. Like I said, it's very rare. The one in January was the most rare. Um, but from an energetic perspective, though, they are definitely much larger than it is just the history of it as well. Um, they really felt civilizational shift. On January 26th, Neptune entered Aries. Neptune had spent 14 years dissolving boundaries in Pisces. During that period, humanity explored spirituality, intuition, illusion, collective consciousness, and the blurring of old structures, a lot of which, still unfolding. Accumulation of all these energies, right? Then suddenly Neptune, which crossed into Aries, a sign of identity, a sign of initiation, a sign of sovereignty, a sign of becoming. Almost immediately, the collective, questions shifted into like, who am I? Why am I here? What am I here to build? And what is authenticity to me? Um, and what am I no longer living to tolerate? And so this is, when I say becoming, I'm talking about just really a remembrance of things. The Saturn, when the Saturn entered into Aries, Saturn is about the architect, the structures, and the builder, the master teacher, the force that turns vision into embodiment. And then came, this event. Many astrologers are called the epic defining, is an epic defining. On February 20th, we had Saturn and Neptune meeting at 0 degrees in Aries, which is the Aries point, the very beginning of the zodiac. It's all about leadership. And so this is a cosmic reset button, a convergence of vision and structure, spirit and matter, dream and reality, the invisible and visible worlds. Many people experience this consciously. Others, have experienced it unconsciously in a way, but regardless, something fundamental was planted into the collective field. And I share these messages for your awareness as well, in case, you're really sensing and feeling that something just feels so different or something feels off, because things are not the same anymore. Things are definitely, moving into a whole different flow of cosmic energy and galactic energy. There's a new seed, there's a new blueprint, a new architecture for humanity. And but to clarify, it's not really that it's new, it's just more like renewed or recycled. So there's a reason why, when we recycle things like plastic or cans, it's all being renewed into all new cans or new models, right? So that's essentially what's happening to us. We're being recycled. And as the human evolution that we are, but we're stepping into this HomoLuminous type civilization, which is being anchored in a whole different way. And the reason being is because we come with a million lessons from like eons of many lifetimes, including this lifetime, which is really accumulation of all those lifetimes that is completing major cycles. So if you're really experiencing intense moments right now with your family or even your friends or certain relationships, this is all just part of the package of that completion of cycles and releasing what no longer serves. So I feel like I feel like 2026 in general, the whole year is going to, especially moving forward after the solstice, that things are just going to open up a lot more, especially for those who have really been struggling and doing the inner work, doing a lot of the shadow work, and things will start to open up in a whole new light, a whole new perspective. And that's really what it feels like right now. So share with me though, let me know what you're feeling, what you're sensing from all of these energies. So going back to, the message about this with the sun has been increasingly active. And I've been sharing a lot of this on my social media. The solar flares intensified, the geomagnetic storms are accelerated. I mean, we've had like M-class flares, X-class flares, which are one of the highest. So wave after wave of solar activity. So now, regardless of one's interpretation of whatever these solar events are, I find it fascinating that during periods of intense solar activity, many people report similar experiences like fatigue or expanded intuition, emotional purging and releasing out of nowhere, and vivid dreams or explosive emotional moments with people around you. Um, and identity shifts. There's an identity shift crisis going on. Timeline sensation, heightened synchronicities, and a feeling that reality itself is becoming more fluid. Whether we view the sun as spiritually, symbolically, or energetically, or scientifically, it is clear here that, and this is all like combination because the sun is everything. Sun is actually very multidimensional. So it doesn't matter which angle you look at it. It is clear that our relationship with solar activity is becoming part of the collective conversation. And perhaps this is because the sun has always represented consciousness, light, illumination, revelation, the unveiling of what was hidden. And I really sense that it is some other form of portal of transportation as well. So it has many facet functions to the sun, more than we have been told, or that science hasn't yet explored. And science is exploding with like findings, with research, with revelations, things that was already known by ancients and a lot of mystics. Beloved, if you're craving deeper connection, intuitive expansion, and consistent energetic support, join me inside the Frequency Resonance Lounge. This is a monthly Master Heart Circle, moon ceremonies that includes the full and new moon, and a private community for connections. Link is in the show notes. What I find most interesting is not the celestial events themselves, but it is what happen afterwards, and the acceleration, the compression, the strange sensation that time no longer behaves the way it once did. Many of us were raised within a very linear reality, which is past, present, future, birth, school, career, retirement, all seeming like a straight line, right? A predictable type progression. And for this, during a linear time, it was much easier for a lot of psychics to do predictions and to be able to predict in a much easier way. But as consciousness, though, is expanding because of all these solar activities and cosmic new light codes as well, celestial events everywhere, that model begins to feel incomplete. So mystics have spoken about this for thousands of years. Ancient traditions understood that time was not necessarily linear, and many indigenous teachings understood cyclical time. Many spiritual traditions spoke of eternal time, sacred time, cosmic time. And honestly, time doesn't exist, neither does space. It doesn't exist. It's just that, we have placed a structure on it with these physical bodies, like 3D was more linear. 4D and 5D feel more like nonlinear, meaning that everything is merged, and it comes in the present moment where the timelines, the past and the future timelines merge within the present moment. So all of that, of the past can be rewritten within that space, as well as the future being reformed within just being present with yourself. And that is the key. That's why a lot of ancients always emphasize the presence, That's why a lot of mystics always focus on the present. And it has become increasingly more simple, I would say, to be able to hold a bit of the present, but at the same time, not so much because there's just an increased amount of distractions and, everything that is happening around the world. There's like a lot of information being loaded super fast, right? And a lot of it has to do with the Uranus that entered into Gemini in May of 2026. And so this is like an overload of information. But as many mystics, have always said, the master, which is you're the light master, is knowing how to manage the energies around you, or as Dolores Cannon said, manipulating the energy. But it's a manipulation that is in a good way, which where I call it being the light master. So and quantum science, though, increasingly explores these realities that challenge our assumptions about space and time. So, quantum science, quantum physics, all just becoming a big theme these days, a big conversation that we're having on this. It's all interconnected with it. It's really a scientific side to it more than it is the woo-woo of anything or anything spiritual. Or woo-woo being what some people would phrase it. I never really care for the term. So my personal experience is that time is becoming more fluid. I really sense more of the non-linear. Is anybody else experiencing that too? More responsive to consciousness. Some weeks feel like months, whereas months feel like days. And then there's times when it could feel like an eternity for a month sometimes because it's almost like a rubber band is the way I'm seeing it, time moving like resetting. So it's either gonna move really slow or you're gonna be expanding it so much, the rubber band feels like so fluid in that way. Some memories feel ancient even though they happened recently. Like I was saying, 2026, the first half just feels ancient to me. Feels like a whole other different dimensional space as well. And some future possibilities feel closer than events from last year. This brings us to awakening, and a word that gets often used. But for me, though, just to explain what awakening is, it's just a simple term, and that is, it's just a remembrance. You're remembering. You're remembering who you are, who you've always been. And we've always been superhuman. It's just that the veils have kept us hidden or forgotten. It's like going through amnesia, you know, as we entered into these physical bodies, only to know that during this time that things will reopen up again in the cosmic to bring in this remembrance again. So it is a remembering of who you were before conditioning, before fear, before limitation, before forgetting. Awakening is not becoming something new. It is really remembering what has always existed beneath the layers. Likewise, ascension is not, escaping Earth. Ascension to me is another simple term, and the way I describe it is as a return and a reconnection. It's a return and a reconnection, a return to coherence, a return to source, a return to the truth of our multidimensional nature. So, remembrance and reconnection. You're remembering and you're reconnecting. And it goes even deeper because then we get into the revival, it gets into the renewal. And so we are essentially being renewed and pretty much the recycled renewed. So that's awakening and ascension, two sides of the same sacred process. And this is where the Galactic Homo-Luminous Timeline enters this conversation. I do not believe humanity is becoming something that it has never been. I believe humanity is remembering something it has forgotten, stepping out of that amnesia state. We're waking up from deep sleep, from the amnesia, and remembering. The ancients knew, the mystics knew, the wisdom keepers knew. Across civilizations, we find stories of luminous beings, golden ages, star knowledge, cosmic origins, expanded states of consciousness. What if these weren't merely myths? What if these were just memories? What if humanity has walked this path before? And I believe we have. Actually, I know we have. I should say more of no, because really in my inner knowingness in my heart, it does really feels like we have cycles within cycles, recycle a cosmic spiral, civilizations rising, civilizations falling, consciousness expanding, consciousness contracting again and again. Yet something feels different now. And the difference I sense is really in the embodiment of it. It's not a temporary expansion, not fleeting mystical experiences, but stabilization, anchoring, integration, rerouting. The old cycles often reach higher states but struggle to sustain them. This time feels different. The frequencies feel stronger, more intense, faster pulsating, accelerated. The opportunities for embodiment feel greater. The awakening is moving out of monasteries and mountaintops and mountain caves, and it is entering businesses, families, relationships, communities, leadership, technology, innovation, daily life. The light is becoming practical. The mystical is becoming embodied. And this may be the hallmark. Actually, this is the hallmark of the HomoLuminous timeline. The integration of spirit and matter, the integration of heaven and earth, of human and cosmic. So we could really say the reintegration of all of this. The HomoLuminous human is not perfect, but not superior, not exclusive. So just, as a note on that as well, the HomoLuminous human is simply conscious. It's a consciousness state that we're evolving into. It's heart-led, sovereign, connected, aware of their multidimensional nature, aware that separation is an illusion, aware that life is participatory, aware that consciousness influences reality, aware that intuition is intelligence, is divine intelligence, aware that love is a frequency, aware that creation begins within. The luminous human does not abandon humanity. The luminous human fully inhabits humanity. And as this timeline unfolds, we may continue to witness identity shifts, career shifts, relationship shifts, family shifts because you start to notice some of the traumas and the patterns in that and how it all relates to your own patterns and your own trauma. Spiritual awakenings, unexpected endings, unexpected beginnings. Many structures built upon fear and separation may continue dissolving. Many individuals may question everything that they once believed because we've been built on belief systems. And this is not necessarily a dysfunction. Sometimes it is just, the remembrance piece of it. Sometimes it is the soul reorganizing itself around higher truth. And I like to say there is a reorganization of our blueprints as well. There is the cosmic blueprint. There is divine feminine, divine masculine blueprint, the I am presence blueprint. And so where do we go from here? We return to the heart again and again. It's always been about the heart. Because the heart is not merely an organ, the heart is a compass. It is a GPS, compass type heart. Heart GPS is what I call it. It's a portal, an intelligence center, a bridge between the human and the cosmic. The heart recognizes timelines. The heart recognizes truth and authenticity. The heart recognizes resonance. And if I am completely honest, everything I have shared in this episode comes back to one simple knowing. I can feel it in my heart. I can feel it, humanity changing. I'm not talking about emotional feeling here. I'm talking about the sensation of the inner knowing, which is very intuitive. I use the term feel, but it's really more of the sensation of the inner knowingness, where some may call it claircognizant. And which, is something that we all hold within ourselves, different intuitive aspects of the way we read the energy. So I can sense the old timeline dissolving. I can sense the new architecture emerging. I can sense the new blueprints emerging within us, and I can sense the luminous human awakening or remembering. Not someday, not centuries from now, but now. In this lifetime, in this moment, in us. So consider this to be a transmission of information. So as we close this episode, I invite you to ask yourself, what part of me is being remembered? What part of me is returning home? What aspect of my luminous natures is asking to emerge? And perhaps most importantly, what if the future isn't something we are waiting for? What if the future is something we are becoming? Or just renewed, something that we're being renewed. So thank you again for being a part of this podcast and for listening to this episode, for being with me. I realize this was a long episode, but know that this is the Galactic Homo-Luminous timeline that it is unfolding at this time. So if this episode really resonated for you, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review, share it with others, because this is a very important message for all of us to hear, for all of us to be activated. Until next time, continue shining your light, trusting your heart, and remembering who you truly are. The Galactic Homo-Luminous timeline is not somewhere else. That begins within you. And it is already unfolding. It's unfolding within each one of us. And as you do your part, it also shifts that quantum field, the collective consciousness that we are all a part of. And I will catch you in the next episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to click like, save, and share with others so they can also experience what you just experienced. And stay tuned for some more high vibe episodes, and I'll be connecting with you in the next quantum field. Sending you so much love.